Okay, so I'm going to play this on this video here that we're looking at, posted by Liz Churchill on August the 13th. And I'm going to play it on my external device because I'm getting feedback when I record it via my PC. So I hope you can hear this. I hope it's going to be loud enough. Let me...
No one was forced to have the vaccination. Who made the comment? Was it Dr. Thurin? You made that comment? Right. You were in Australia in COVID-19. You must have been fully aware that people, nurses, doctors, people to have their jobs, to keep their jobs, were forced to have the vaccination. Now, do you retract your statement that they were not forced?
Senator, no, I believe firmly that nobody was forced to have a vaccine. Mandates or vaccine requirements are determined by governments and health authorities. I believe everybody was offered an opportunity to get a vaccine or not get a vaccine. I don't believe that anybody was forced to take a vaccine.
A lot of Australians will disagree with you on that one.
Oh, 5 billion.
So...
No one was forced to have the vaccination. Who made the comment?
So, do you agree? Now, let's just flip the script a little bit here. Let's say that it was an 18-year-old, let's say an 18-year-old girl, goes for a job in an office. So she goes in, the person points to the couch and says, lie down there, take your clothes off. No sex, no job. And then they went back to their parents, their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles. I don't think most people go, oh, that's nice, dear. What would you like for dinner? I think they'd hit the roof. And just imagine, we could say you had a 12-year-old girl, 12-year-old boy. And they went, let's say they wanted to do a paper round, wanted to save up for something, and the person behind the counter says, hey, yeah, come round to the back, get on your knees or take your clothes off. No sex or BJ, no job. Again, if they went home to their parents and said that, I don't think the parents would be, that's nice, dear, fish fingers with your chips. I think they would hit the roof, and rightly so. And that was the premise of all the Harvey Weinstein stuff, where actresses, so far, seems to be mainly female. And I know they're trying to overturn his case, etc. But as it stands at the moment, actresses went thinking they were going to discuss a script, their film career, an offer of a job, and then Harvey would come out in a dressing gown or wearing a towel, and before you know it, they've either succumbed or they've run out. But the threat was, you'll never work in this town again if you don't do what I'm proposing here. And many of those actresses, now becomes clear why they sort of disappeared without a trace. And I think most people would think that was unacceptable. We had a similar scenario with the Harvey Weinstein thing. I was listening to an interview yesterday, in fact, with one of his victims, one of the earlier ones, and she said she was a dancer and did, backup dancing for singers, so if you went to a big concert, like we'd have something here in Wembley in the UK or the Super Bowl and all that sort of stuff, she'd be one of the backup dancers. And she said a friend said that there was a way that she could make some extra money learning how to be a massage therapist. And she explained, and it made perfect sense when she said it. She said, as dancers, we're always getting injured. So we would be massaging each other regularly. If somebody, hurt something, we'd help them strap themselves up so they could do the show and da-da-da. So she was thinking, great, a new skill. I'll be able to really do this properly. And so she turns up at Jeffrey Epstein's house, and he says, do you know about massage? She said, oh, yeah, I know a bit. And so he points to a drawer. She said she pulled open the drawer and it was full of copies of the same book, How to Massage Manual. So he says, get a book. She picks up a book and he's asking her questions about anatomy and the body and muscle groups and all the rest of it. And she said, oh, I thought I was really clued up because we're always massaging ourselves. But there's a lot of stuff I didn't know. So he said to her, you need to go away and study. So he gave her the book and she took the book away. And then she gets a call from the friend saying, Jeffrey really liked you, come back in a week's time, yada, yada, yada. So she goes back, she's really studied this book. She's thinking she's going to be able to ace it this time when he asks her questions. And of course, we know what happened from there. And whether this is happening to an 18-year-old, a 20-year-old, or a 12-year-old, I don't think many people in their right mind would go, yeah, that's okay. Now, so how does that relate to the COVID vaccines? Well, as I was watching this video and thinking about the idea of consent versus coercion and informed consent and free will choice versus being threatened, I was thinking of a family that I saw interviewed a good year and a half ago, something like that. And parents. And they said to their daughter they don't want her to take the COVID vaccine because they didn't think it was safe, despite the PR machine and the global campaign and the propaganda, safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective. And her daughter wanted to go on a school trip, and having the vaccine was part of the deal. No vaccine, no trip. So anyway, the daughter says, oh, it's okay, I'm allowed to go on the trip. So the parents were just thinking, oh, okay, well, they must have, relaxed requirements, da-da-da-da-da. Didn't really think anything of it. So the daughter goes off on a trip, ironically, a trip about freedom and liberty, and the Constitution and all of that sort of stuff. And the first they know that something is up is the parents get a call from the chaperones, the people from the school who were running the trip, and said, your daughter's not very well. So they're thinking, okay, well, let her sleep it off. Let's see how she is in the morning, etc. So anyway, they end up having to go to collect their daughter. Ends up in hospital. She had 9 heart attacks, 9 cardiac arrests. And her parents said her hands and her feet were black. And the doctors, the nurses, those attending, just said they'd never seen anything like it, didn't know what was going on. Anyway, her daughter subsequently sadly died. And the mother said while she was brushing her dead daughter's hair, the attending physician came in and said to the mother, we don't need to do an autopsy. What an odd thing to say. Your daughter's just died. She's still warm. The mother is brushing her hair and the attending is coming in to say we don't need an autopsy. Yet they've all just been saying we've never seen anything like this. We don't know what's going on. The mother in her grief just, okay, didn't object, etc. It wasn't until later after the dust has settled they'd buried their daughter and they started thinking, what on earth happened here? What went on? And then one of the daughter's friends then confessed that they had secretly gone to get the vaccine, because what's been happening here in the UK and I'm pretty sure in the United States as well, they've been trying to make it so that children over 12 don't have to tell their parents. They can just go off and make this decision themselves. So let's come back to that flip the script made up scenario. Your 12-year-old goes to that paper round and someone issues them an ultimatum. If they came home and told you, would you say that they chose what happened to them? No, I don't think anybody would. So how is it with this, where they're injecting experimental gene therapies into people? And I understand that the definition of a vaccine was changed in order to accommodate this new product. How can anybody say that being threatened with the loss of your livelihood? Here in the UK, we had no jab, no job, no jab, no travel. But put the travel aside for a moment. But again, they're probably intertwined for many people because their jobs involved travel. And I know, they built up the scenario around it and all the rest of it about, the Rachel Maddows of this world. Take the vaccine, the virus stops with you, and, punching at the camera. The Pfizer executives are now sat down in various Senate hearings, etc., saying they didn't test for transmissibility. So the vaccine, as I think many of those who took it very quickly found out, the COVID vaccine did not stop transmission, and the COVID vaccine did not stop you getting COVID. And by all accounts, for many, it actually weakened their immune system or caused what they call a cytokine storm, which actually meant not only did they keep getting COVID, they were getting sick with other things as well. So the propaganda that went around it was not true. Yet you've got people sitting here. The gentleman who was speaking is the one with the grey hair. And I thought it almost looked like a statue sitting next to him, because I know we're looking at it still, but even when they were talking, that cover guy on the right, he was just sitting there like frozen. I was like, is he alive? Or is it AI? But you've got people sitting here saying no. And I know I had a friend who told me to shut the F up because no one was forced to take it. But I think actually issuing ultimatums is exactly that. It's an ultimatum. It's coercion. I don't think that's a free choice. I really don't think that's a free choice. In the same way I wouldn't think it was a free choice if, I know the Hollywood casting couch is one of the oldest couches in town and people know it exists, but just because people know it exists, I don't think that makes it right. And this to me is akin to that. Because children are involved in this. You can't attend school. You can't be in the football team. You can't attend your lectures. That doesn't sound like free choice and free will to me. And when you add to that the whole issue of informed consent, or should I say the lack thereof, I don't think that was free choice for those who, there were people who tried to get the religious exemption, they were turned down. And even when something goes horribly, as we say, sorry Pete, but goes horribly wrong, belly up, the people who were injured or left bereaved because their partner, friend, whatever relative was forced to take it, they are then left with a whole different battle. Because Lisa Shaw's husband, now Lisa Shaw is one of the first people to publicly be confirmed as being murdered by the COVID vaccine. She was a BBC radio presenter. She died in 2021 of a brain aneurysm. 2 years later, her husband was still fighting for compensation. And he made it absolutely clear it was not about the money. It was a measly £120,000 for someone's life. It was the principle of the thing. That there was a coroner's report. There was an autopsy. The results of that were all made public. And still, he was fighting for compensation, having been left widowed and been left only the sole parent, single father, now bringing up a young boy who has lost his mother, and he's still fighting for compensation. And then for those who were injured, having been forced, coerced, or, whatever you're going to call it, into taking this concoction, many of them have been turned down for compensation, even though they can no longer work, or maybe they can work, but there's nothing else they can do in their life because that takes all of their energy. Oh God, sorry, I've just seen the breaking news that's come up on my screen from BBC. AI invents new antibiotics that could kill superbugs, gonorrhea and MRSA, researchers reveal. Today's the 14th of August 2025. Jesus, so even if they can just about work, but many of them said they can no longer work and they can no longer function, they've also been turned down for compensation because they are not more than 60% disabled. I mean, how ridiculous is that? That not only were many of these people forced by their own account, that's what they said, they were threatened, do this or lose your job. And if you lose your job, unless you've got independent wealth and means, you lose your livelihood, you can lose your home and everything that you've worked for. So not only were they threatened and bullied into it by their employers, when it all went wrong, they were left adrift. That was it. End of. I remember listening to one person who, her husband worked for, she's in the United States, she said her husband worked for a construction company. So the owner of the company forced her husband into taking it. So they were deliberating. He was saying, I don't want to do it. I don't want to take it. And so they're talking about, well, if you don't take it, what are we going to do? We're not going to be able to get work and and all the, responsibilities that they have. So he decided to take it. He then died of a heart attack. And so we were on a Q&A thing. And the question was, well, what did the boss say? Well, the boss didn't say anything because the boss also died of a heart attack. So it's so ridiculous that you just couldn't even make it up. That's why I keep saying, welcome to clown world, because it's just beyond. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because I could go on. But when you see this kind of madness, it's just like, really? You've got to be having a laugh here. No one was forced to take the COVID vaccine. It was just an offer. It reminds me of offering invitation to treat. It's all coming back to me now. The Carlisle Smokeball Company. If any of you have studied law, that's probably one of the first cases you studied about the, difference between offer, invitation to treat, etc. But that's what this sounds like. It's just wordplay now. And it would be funny and hilarious if it wasn't so serious and if people weren't dead because of it. Anyway, I shall leave it there. Marilyn Devonish, the Neuro Success Coach from transformationstm.com, over and out. I will catch you later.